Good evening. Wild Rocket is here with you from Great Shelford in Cambridge, and I am here today to present to you a brand new video that will be the start of a new series simply called Wild Rocket Talks, and the intention is for each video in the series to talk for 30 to 40 minutes about a subject which I believe is very important for helping people to live more empowered, inspiring and meaningful lives. This is something which I've been wanting to do for quite a while, so I'm very excited to finally be presenting you with the first subject and the first talk in what I hope will be a very productive and helpful and powerful series. So for my first Wild Rocket Talks subject, I'm going to be talking about using nostalgia as creative inspiration into the future. Now, nostalgia is a very interesting and important subject to address because it's something which impacts all of us at different stages of our lives, regardless of what we're going through. So it's something which is very useful to be aware of in terms of how it can help us be better people. And it's also very important to address because the word nostalgia comes loaded with many negative associations which give a false impression as to how it can empower us to really be the best people that we came here to be. So I think at this point it's helpful to look at exactly what nostalgia is and the history of nostalgia. Nostalgia, the modern English word nostalgia, is actually composed of two separate Greek words. The first, nostos, which means homecoming, and the second, algos, which means pain. And it was thought that the word nostalgia was originally coined to describe a condition that Swiss mercenaries would experience when they were away from their homes and their friends and their families for an extended period of time. So we can see how from the very outset the word nostalgia has come loaded with these very negative associations. But what is nostalgia? Nostalgia, the sensation of nostalgia, is basically the feeling and the sensation that we have when in our day-to-day lives we are reminded of a previous memory which had with it a lot of emotional significance, a very happy memory, sometimes from childhood, but sometimes we could be adults and we could remember something and experience a very happy, positive experience from our early adulthood. And the one thing that all these past experiences which we remember fondly and which engages us in a period of reflection have in common is that all of these experiences, without exception, for which we feel nostalgia, come to us because these memories and these associations have shaped the basis of our being in some way. These experiences have contributed to the foundations of our personalities. So nostalgia is, without exception, sensations that we have when we remember very foundational and deep and profound experiences in our lives. Nostalgia can affect anybody at any time, regardless of how old you are. According to scientific studies, children as young as 7 experience nostalgia. They would often remember birthday parties and positive experiences with friends and reminisce and think fondly of them. And from a very personal experience, as somebody who has spent a lot of time studying and thinking about my own childhood, I can definitely see many examples. I remember being as young as 8 and 9, sometimes even younger, and remembering fondly about a house I lived in for only 6 months when I was 4. So I am very, very familiar with experiencing nostalgia, not only in my adult life, but also even in my childhood. Nostalgia, as I was saying, can impact anyone at any time, at any age, and nostalgia can also impact us unpredictably. It can come to us at the most unexpected of times. Very, very often, sometimes nostalgia can come to us when we're just sitting and deliberating or sitting stationary and thinking about our lives, but that's quite rare. Most of the time, a feeling of nostalgia, a fondness, a fond remembering of the past hits us when we are going about our day-to-day lives, and we could be doing anything. We could be watching a movie, we could be walking around town, we could be reading a book, we could be sharing stories with friends and family, we could be looking at old pictures. Nostalgia most often comes to us as an external trigger to an internal bodily, dreamlike or physical or emotional sensation that has lain dormant within us for a long period of time. And we can see this more often if you're somebody who likes to read. If you ever spend 3 or 4 hours or an entire afternoon reading a book, when you're reading a descriptive passage of someone exploring a new area or talking about their country or building a series of images, you can often see how when you're reading a passage intensively, as you're doing so, all kinds of memories and associations triggered by the words that you're reading come up, within your dream body, within your own experience. All these things which are necessary in order to help you process and understand meaningfully the texts with which you are engaging. So it's something which many bibliophiles and readers can relate to very strongly, because whenever you read any book for a long period of time, nostalgia very, very often works its way through that process. So nostalgia is something which happens to all of us. It's very natural. It's not something that we can escape. So next, let's talk a bit about the roots and the roots of what nostalgia means for us in terms of what it tells us about our human nature. Nostalgia is something very fundamental to who we perceive ourselves to be, because all the memories that were formed, all the experiences which we look back on, as I mentioned a bit earlier, but which I'll go into more detail, were formed because we consider these experiences to be fundamental in shaping who we are. It could be something as simple as visiting your first bookstore, experiencing your first taste of freedom on a summer holiday after working on exams for 3 years. It could be, meeting your first girlfriend. It could be the first time you held a games console in your hands. More often than not, nostalgia builds upon our sense of childhood, dreamlike innocence. The memories which form the basis of what nostalgia is are formed from a place of pure innocence and pure innocent energy. The most memorable experiences are formed in our lives when we are most innocent, most playful, most in tuned into the process of living. A lot of people call this the present moment. It could just simply be. It's when you are completely, absolutely yourself 100%, without thinking about anything else, when you're expressing yourself, when you're doing the things that you love to do on this planet, when you're doing what you came here to do. This is why a lot of nostalgic moments happen when people remember their childhoods, because for most people, when they're in their childhood and their adolescence, they were at their most free. They were expressing themselves most with the most level of emotional clarity, because they were just being without even thinking, without trying to live up to their own expectations, society's expectations, or their parents' expectations. They were just doing the things which they were drawn to, like building Legos, like playing games, like writing stories. And when we get older in life, we remember those places and those moments and those people that were wrapped around this authentic period of our lives. And I think that's why a lot of people experience a sadness and think that the present and the future are not as meaningful because they're not having these experiences now. But what a lot of people, and myself included, did not realize, and do not realize a lot of the time, is that actually when you are yourself in those moments, it's not related to time or your development. A child could create a nostalgic memory just as easily as a 16-year-old can, just as easily as a 23-year-old can. The only thing that needs to happen in order for the most powerful life memories to take shape is for you to be yourself 100% and to express yourself as authentically as possible. I very often have fond memories of a time in my life back in 2007, which for me was a mostly very difficult period of my time. I don't have very good memories of that year, but there was one evening which I spent in my hometown in February, so this was about 9 years ago now. And I was just walking around at night. I didn't have anywhere to sleep because I didn't want to pay for a hotel. So I was just walking around, and it started to snow. And I was walking around enjoying the snow and enjoying the solitude and the peacefulness that I felt just walking through old childhood locales and places. And that was a very positive memory for me. And it was one of the only memories I recall from that period with any sense of nostalgic fondness, because in that moment, despite everything else that was happening, I was at my most true self. You know, I felt happiest then, and I do now a lot of the time, when I'm just alone, walking around, experiencing the world in a very innocent way. And so I think what we can take away from this is that you can create those nostalgic memories now, which later in life you can look back on fondly, while still creating those memories when you realize that this capacity is within your hands. And this is even backed up by science. There was a study 2 years ago from the Cornell University in New York which talked about how actually nostalgizing or engaging in nostalgic periods can actually boost performance. A lot of hypotheses were based around the idea that nostalgia was actually clinically bad for you because it would contribute towards mind wandering and getting your focus away from the things that you need to do in your day. But actually, this study conducted at Cornell University shows actually how being nostalgic activates the default memory. It activates the default memory, which can help us when we're goal setting use positive and powerful experiences that we experience in order to inspire the things that we're going to do in the future. So I think it's very, 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 very important to realize that nostalgia is not something which is in any way hindering to us. It's something which can actually inspire us. I think another very important way of dealing with nostalgia and to use those memories to empower you is to actually look back at what really inspired you, the things that made you happy, the things that you did when those memories were created that brought you the most joy. You know, for me it was playing video games, for me it was writing stories, for me it was making blogs, for me it was being around family, for me it was trying to create and still being in the process of creating artwork, for creating animation. You know, animation, anyone who knows me knows animation is probably, along with languages, two of my single biggest passions. And looking back at what those were and what you did and making a big list of them and really focusing on them, and then asking yourself, are you playing back then the way that you are now? Are you doing those things that inspired you, and are you using them in a way that can not just recreate what you experienced before, but can help develop those skills into the future? You know, for some people they picked up a guitar at 17, but then they didn't play again till they were 25. So playing the guitar again, but thinking about how you playing this guitar can tie into what you're doing now, and how that can contribute to developing the sort of person that you are now, is something which can really help you very, very much. Nostalgia is something really, really, really important as well in terms of dealing with negative memories, dealing with unresolved issues. Many people, myself included, have experienced pain when experiencing nostalgia, because a lot of what we experienced in the past were unresolved. This could be something like having an argument with a friend that was never fixed, starting a project that was never completed. That's very true for me. I often have nostalgic periods where I think back fondly with a bit of sense of regret, because I started something as a young man, you know, as a much younger man. I'm still young, but as a much younger man, which to this day has not been completed. So going within, meditating, sitting within and looking at what you did that was not completed, and thinking about how it can be finished right now in your day-to-day life, can help you tremendously. Making a list too about all those things that you did and all those things that inspire you now, the things that excite you the most, can really, really help you. And also to not separate who you were as a child or as a young man or woman with who you are right now, but instead realizing that who you were as a child is actually what you are right now and what you will always be. The soul remains constant throughout. Your experiences develop, your tastes develop, the people who you are with change, but your human essence of pure energy, those things that inspire you from the depths of your being. You know, for me it's languages, for me it's animation, for me it's writing, for me it's eating healthy. When I tap into those energies, you know, for me it's creating things. You know, one of the things I love to do more than anything is build Legos. And I'm asking myself now, even though I'm not inclined to go out and buy a Lego set per se, how can I use those same creative building energies to do the kind of things that I want to do now? To realize, as I was saying, that who you were then and who you are now is a continuing process. They're not separate. That childlike energy that was within you, that created all those beautiful memories, exists within you now. The only reason that you don't experience it right now is because you've not allowed yourself the time to really sit down and make a list of the things that this child loved to do. So just making a simple list can will help you immensely. Meditating on that, sitting silently after you've made your list, and really thinking about those creative energies for a while can help you a lot. But the thing that will probably help you the most, which is what helped me the most, is actually taking concrete, radical steps into making those a reality. When I started to seriously sit down and spend at least half an hour every day doing something concrete, towards building my future, about the vision I wanted to see, my life changed immensely. When I stopped dreaming about going to Japan and actually taking steps towards making it a reality, my life changed immensely. So I would say that's the next step that you can do after A, making a list, B, meditating on it, and C, taking the radical action, is to just do a little bit every day towards making it real. Another really helpful emotion that we can use with nostalgia is that of play. When you form those nostalgic memories, you were playing, you were just being yourself, you were not thinking, you were not engaged in thought, you were not part of a debate club. More often than not, you were not at university. Some of you were, but if you were at university, you were doing something very spontaneous and unique to you that was not in the context of a seminar. So realize that those memories are created when you are being yourself without any barrier. Yes, studying is important. Yes, reading and research and science is very important in terms of building your expertise in whatever childlike, playful vision you have of yourself. But the source of it must come from you playing right now and playing from within. This is why I'm making this video right now, out of this sense of playfulness. I did a bit of research on what nostalgia was, and I thought about the topic, but this was something I wanted to talk about for years because it's something I've always been thinking about. I've always been fascinated by what nostalgia means for us because it's something I've experienced a lot. But really, the impulse to make it comes from that childlike energy of just wanting to play and share this energy and this playfulness with you. So that's what I would say is very important for nostalgia. When it comes to you, don't be afraid of it. Don't think that somehow what you were before is better than what you will be in the future, because what you were before is simply a small fraction of everything that you can become. Because if you were truly perfect in your childhood, if you were truly perfect in your adolescence, that perfection would continue into your present life. But the fact that when you feel nostalgia, you feel sad because of it, that you feel down because of it, only goes to show that the best is yet to come. Because the best is yet to come, because a lot of those experiences, a lot of those memories have not been carried through to their ultimate conclusion. So again, if you're a writer, if you're an artist, if that was your inclination, keep going along that path. Do a little bit of it every day, and realize that even as you're doing what you love, nostalgia is going to come into play. You're still going to be reminded of what you did in the past. You're still going to be reminded of an innocent state which is not in your current reality. But by no means lose track of the here and now, of this present moment, of all the energies that are around you, of all the things that you have at your disposal with which you can play. When you begin to do that, you will realize that there's nothing whatsoever that can stop you. There's nothing that can hold you back whatsoever. So, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed making this video. This was my first Wild Rocket talk on nostalgia. Remember that nostalgia is, in its essence, a creative energy. It's a playful energy. It's something that can be generated anytime, if you ever have children of your own, I don't, but when we look at mothers and fathers, we can see how when they are with their children, they once again embody those childlike state. And that's, I'm beginning to realize now. For many years I didn't understand it, but now I realize why so many people like having children, even though technically there is no need, because we are overpopulated and there are many people who are orphans who need to be adopted. But nevertheless, people still have children, not out of any rational or scientific or humanitarian reason, as much as it is for a very emotional, nostalgic reason. But we don't need to have children in order to relive those memories. We don't need to have kids in order to awaken those energies that are already within us. It's something which we can generate at any time. Thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really hope that you found this subject helpful and useful. If you have any comments about nostalgia, you would like to share your own experiences with nostalgia, please leave them in the comments below. Please like this video if you thought it was interesting. Let me know about any feedback that you have, and I'm looking forward to presenting the next video on the next Wild Rocket Talk very, very soon. This has been Wild Rocket here with you from Great Shelford in Cambridge. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and keep on forging your own beautiful path into your amazing future. The best is truly yet to come. Goodbye.